record it. Right, it's recording. Cool.
Okay.
Hi, welcome to the first episode of Brit-ish with Jeevan Kennedy and Afra Glock, produced by GYG Media. For those of you who don't know, my name's Jeevan. I'm half Indian and half Irish. I was born in Dublin and I moved to the UK in 2004. Afra is my co-host. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Hiya, so I'm Afra. My mum is from Sierra Leone and then my dad is English with his dad's, like, his family are Jewish. And our podcast is basically, it's called Brit-ish because we are two young people, we're Brit-ish, and we're giving our perspective on things that are happening in society at the moment and in our country and how it affects us being the young people who always get caught up in the middle of it all.
Thanks. So today we're going to be talking about news and media. So I've seen a lot of things going around lately of like when you go on Instagram and stuff and you go on The Guardian or whatever news channel you follow, people are accusing the news of fear-mongering, of scaring people, and we're just going to talk about that. Is it fair? Like, is this other news actually scaremongering? Is it should we be doing it? So my first kind of topic that I'm throwing out there is the sheer amount of coverage just overwhelming?
Yes, oh my goodness, it's just, I feel like there hasn't been a break for anything else. Like, I'm sure other things are happening in the world, like the Labour leadership was last night. I only had a smidge about that. Like, there are other things happening, but it's kind of just like this pandemic, corona, the death rates going up, this, that, and the next. And the sheer volume is a lot for people to take in. And in one hand, like, it's good for us to be educated and not like China and be suspicious and kind of like hide the facts.
Oh yeah, definitely.
But at the same time, it's like, can we actually deal with all this information right now? Like, we're only human, and a lot of us don't understand what all these technical words mean and things like that, all this medical jargon. So how much good is it doing us for this sheer amount of volume of news?
Yeah, it's just, it spreads the panic as well, doesn't it? Like, you could say that all the news of this is the amount of deaths, this is how many people in your area have got it, and it just spreads that panic, which leads people to act irrationally, which is when we see the rise of things like panic buying, and the shops have to include all these horrible measures. And we were kind of looking at a rise in hate crime in New York the other week, or no, this week actually. Yeah, it's a tough question. Like, do you think that the news is covering it too much?
I think they are, because obviously we need to get like daily updates about what the situation is, but I don't think that, I think the reason why it's seeming a lot worse is because everything else is shut down. So for example, today's a Sunday afternoon, the last football match of the day would be starting at like 5:30. They're already there'll be 2 matches going on at the moment, so like you'd have coverage of other things and the football and yeah, exactly. Like, because there are other things going on in the day. People be talking about, oh, this happened with some nonsense celebrity. Like, there are other things happening normally that kind of filter our way into our news. And I think because everything's shut down, we have no choice but to listen to the situation, because this is the only news that we're getting, and we live in a time of 24-hour news. So it's very much like there's always got to be something to talk about. And at the moment, there isn't anything. So I think just like the fear-mongering, and especially uneducated people's opinions on it all, is because like, they need to fill the hours. Like, news people need to fill the hours, and they'll fill it with nonsense things that are going to scare people. So yeah, like, they've got no choice, but it is getting ridiculous.
But like, a lot of people are saying that we should be staying more positive about this whole pandemic. Like, it's a tough time for a lot of people. It's a time where people should really be thinking more positively and about other people. But I mean, my kind of question is, we should be keeping updated on what's happening with the coronavirus. Is stating facts fear-mongering? And like, you could even argue another side of that maybe this fear-mongering is good because it gets, or fear-mongering is good because it's getting people to take this seriously. What do you think about that?
It's a tricky one, because like you said, like, it can be a good thing. I know we were discussing it and we're going for like the notes things for this, but talking about how fear-mongering, like, if you say like this is what's going to happen, you need to do this, and the government are now even saying if people basically don't behave, we're going to have to put on harsh restrictions. And that isn't fear mongering, but it's giving us a consequence. And I think that will that consequence will make people want to stay in their homes, having their outdoor exercise being taken away from them. That will make people want to stay in their homes. So in one sense, it is good, but in another sense, like you said, it just leads to like havoc, like panic buying and things like that. It just gets ridiculous. I meant to say, when I did my one shift at Tesco's, this man from Florida was there, and he said that in Florida they always have hurricanes, things like that, but he's never seen panic buying like it because they're used to it, and it's not like oh my god, the world's ending thing. Like, it's a normalish thing, so people are able to prepare for it and they're better equipped to deal with this thing. But I think because there's nothing else happening, it is just because it's global, like there's nothing else happening, that's the only thing they could talk about, and it's just like coming from us at all angles.
Yeah, and it is a completely new experience. I see a lot of people trying to make the argument, well, how many people die from flu or other diseases that are going on in the world that happen like all the years round. But the thing about coronavirus that people don't seem to be getting, that this is a new virus that is spreading really quickly and at the end of the day is lethal.
At the start, I think it was kind of like useful when it wasn't as big thing in England. It was useful to have like the stats saying like, oh, this many people died from this, and this how many people have died from coronavirus. Like, it was kind of useful to put it in perspective for us to be like, oh, then it isn't that bad. But I think at the moment, using like things about the flu, like it's not too useful because it's in our country. We're having to go into lockdown. Like, that we understand that so most of us will be fine, but the consequences of it are very real and they're affecting everyone.
I feel like I'm in primary school. I feel like the government is a teacher, and everyone else is like, oh, sit down and do what you're supposed to do, and everyone's running off and sunbathing and going to the beach and like bank holidays coming up.
You know, like the teacher says to you, like, if any of you mess up on this, none of you are going out at break time or something like that. And then like us not going on break time is not having a summer because we've got to prolong this thing for even longer. It's so annoying. And the photos of as well, people in parks in London, and then even in Gravesend, the prom, people are going down to the prom in mobs. Like, there's no need. There's no need.
Yeah, but is it Dominic Raab, I think, is the one who said it, or Matt? Oh gosh, this is really embarrassing.
Hancock, is it?
Names. Hancock, that's it.
Yeah, the health secretary, I think that's it.
Yeah, he was saying sunbathing should be banned in public spaces.
He was like, doesn't matter if you're 6 foot away.
But the fact is that I think we do need to enforce these measures properly. I mean, when you do make the argument that the scaremongering and fearmongering is going to make people take it more seriously, people still aren't doing it, and all it's doing is just hyping up the anxiety for, you know, other people who aren't taking the right precautions.
Yeah, they don't necessarily need to do the fear mongering. They just need to actually put in the restrictions. Like, I'm sure if they put 5 ticket officers in the prom yesterday and today, you wouldn't have as many people there because you're actually getting consequences.
Yeah.
But because like they haven't, like, I haven't seen many cases in the news where people say like, oh, I got fined for this, things like that. You haven't seen much about that. So maybe if we actually start seeing that there are real repercussions to our actions and something's going to hurt our pockets, especially at the time where it's like economically uncertainty, like maybe then people will get the message.
So there's a lot of people saying that we want to stay positive as well. Is there any ways that you think that the news could stay more positive?
That's a tricky one because like I'm thinking all in the news, the more positive things I think I've seen on social media, like Rochelle Humes, her and her husband do like an Instagram live, like little DJing session because he's a DJ, and they do one of those like every evening, and they get loads of people on together, and so everyone's having a little dance, and I like things like that. Like, that's like a positive thing that I've seen, but I can't really think of much in the news in terms of like when you hear the stories of like old people recovering or like young children recovering, things like that, people with pre-existing conditions. That's obviously positivity, but it's hard because like, there's not much that you could pull out that's a positive. That isn't relating to like people recovering or them whipping up hospitals and like that.
Yeah, it's a tricky situation, like when you want people to stay calm and stay positive, but there's not much that you can do other than just this is what's going on.
Can you think of anything they could do to like make it more positive?
I mean, thinking about what I'm looking at on social media and stuff, like, I don't know, like cute videos of animals. I mean, that's not something that the news could do, but it's certainly something that,
Yeah,
like, just,
oh,
yeah, like heartwarming. I've seen videos actually of like um family members visiting old people's homes, and they go and
yeah.
talk through the windows. It is a little bit like sad because they can't see each other, but it is nice to see people still finding ways to interact.
Yeah, exactly. That's I went for a walk today and I waved to my grandma through her window because she lives in
Oh,
like a flat for like old people.
yeah.
And then like I went and saw my friends and I'll go down on my bike, they'll get out from the front door and I'll sit in their front garden from the front door and we'll talk from the porch.
That's
It's
brilliant.
like, yeah, exactly. I feel like I'm 12 again. Like I'm going down to the house and be like, can Jessie come out and talk? Like it's so odd because things I haven't had to do in so long, because usually I'll just like walk down the road, we'll sit in her house for a bit, maybe go and get some fish and chips. But now it's like you've got to sit by the wall on her grass and we'll just
Yeah.
talk. Like that's it. Like we're just talking because you can FaceTime, you can phone call, but it's like having that like face-to-face
Yeah.
interaction is just like a bit of normality. And I think that can be done like at a sensible rate. But then if I started saying like, okay, girls, so there's a group of 10 of us. If we all go out to the prom and we all stay 2 meters away from each other, we'll be fine. That'll be okay. Like, there's a difference between going to your friend's house and standing by the door and looking from afar, and then
Yeah.
being like, let's all go out in the masses, but stay so this far apart from each other. And I feel like people need to understand that and be sensible.
Oh, what was I going to say? I think another thing that we could be reporting more on is the things that people are doing to support those who are vulnerable.
Yeah.
So, for example, we're both part of the GYG committee in Gravesham, and we're thinking about starting to set up pages for fund food banks. I know the local Gopwara is start doing like a delivery thing for people, and the council starting a delivery thing for people who can't have access to food. I think things like that, and you see people supporting like NHS workers and stuff. I mean, there's probably loads of examples that the news could report on and that could be broadcasted. Talk about the work of amazing young people.
Yeah, but those bits, yeah, exactly. Like those bits of positive news, stuff that you want to see, like, because it's a refreshing change. Especially it's cute as well, like if you see little kids like doing drawings or helping their parents with like little bags to help out key workers or NHS staff, and for like things for old people, like stuff like that is really nice. And you kind of see it more on a local news level, but you don't really see it on like prime time news, if that makes sense. I thought that's very American to say prime time news,
Prime
but
time.
you know what I mean. I will shout at my brother for saying that, so I feel really bad for saying it.
Okay, I'll forgive
But
you.
yeah, I just think that is so lovely. Thank you very much. Those are just really cute. Like those are really lovely things to do, and it's a refreshing break. And it strengthens the community. Like it makes us as a community stronger because we know that everyone's looking out for each other, and it encourages more people to do the same. So yeah,
well,
it can be done.
speaking of community and a time to come together, another thing that people have been criticising the news about is using coronavirus as an excuse to criticise our government and governing party. For those of you who don't know us, we're like really big into discussing politics and stuff. So I'm quite excited to get into this. So do you think it's fair to use coronavirus as a time to attack the Conservative Party when it could be a time where we should really be discarding party politics or coming together as communities? What do you think?
I don't think it's fair, but it's necessary, because it's not fair that in this situation you're like kicking the dog when it's down. Like it's not fair. Like things are really bad, but it's necessary to show that funding has been cut. Tories have voted against it, and it's a repeated pattern of them not caring for social workers, for these lower class, not lower class people, but lower skilled jobs, things that we actually need to clearly make everything go round. So it's not really fair, but it's necessary. It needs to happen because you need to show people that this is the party that's causing austerity. This is really political, but like this is what happens when you have cuts to a national health service. Like things become overwhelming. Nurses are crying. There are crises happening. Like the NHS are like asking for recruits, not recruits, volunteers, but it kind of just shows the pressure that's put on them and how there needs to be a change in that. So it's not really fair, but it's a necessary evil, unfortunately.
I think I don't think it's unfair to point out actions that have been taken that we already knew had consequences. So cutting NHS funding with the policy of austerity to save money has had consequences. We see it every single winter when the NHS struggle, and I know quite a few people personally who have had to wait a long time for operations and treatment and stuff. So we already knew that the NHS was in a bit of a bad state. It's been a topic of discussion for like years. And now we're seeing the added pressure of coronavirus, and if we don't have those preventative measures, it's going to be hundreds, or no, not even hundreds, like thousands of people being infected and relying on the NHS. And that is the consequence of these cuts, and I don't think it's unfair to point that out. I mean, that's what the Tory party have done.
And I think that it's an uncomfortable reality for a lot of Tory voters, especially those who come from working class families and who have menial jobs like delivery people, or jobs that they could be considered lower skilled workers, but they still need it at the moment, because they can kind of see that I'm voting for a party that's not really protecting my interests as an employer, and they're not protecting my family's safety either. So I feel like this would be a real test for their party, because it could lead to you turning around and then being and then it could be the next few years of Labour, kind of like how after Gordon Brown, that was the last Labour Prime Minister, and how the recession in 2008, he had to come in really quickly, things like that. This could be the Tory party's version of that, and it could mean that they're gone for many years, but then it could also strengthen their position in politics, because it could be well, look, we've sorted out coronavirus real good, so you should be voting for us. And do you remember in politics how we talk about in national crises, it tests a leader, and a lot of the times they'll get re-elected because of it. Like with George Bush for 9/11, he was seen as a national leader, icon, whatever, in the sense he's protecting his country. So it could have that same effect for the Tory party, because I don't think it necessarily will have it for the individual being Boris Johnson, but it could kind of strengthen them, but it could really kick them down the scale.
Well, I am really interested to see how in the aftermath of coronavirus, how politics is going to be affected, because as you mentioned with Bush in 9/11, the approval ratings go up when a country goes through national crisis. I mean, look at Trump right now. His approval rating is going up, because I think in times of crisis and panic, you kind of flock to your government or your leader, just to support and feel safe. But I am really interested to see what is going to happen we don't know when I don't know when the next general election is going to be, but if people will still, Labour's got Jeremy Corbyn out, it's got a new leader, new deputy leader. They could really, if they didn't jump on this opportunity to criticise the Tory party, then I don't know what to say, but it's interesting how it could change the landscape.
I think it will become towards the rest of the year now, they'll be pushing for reform bills for protection of key workers and raises and more funding. So I think we'll really see the effects of that play out in the Commons in the next, when this is wrapped up really, because obviously there's not an opportunity to do it now, but we'll be seeing that come to the forefront. And I think it might even lead to a few I'm thinking of the term in America, swing voters, for Supreme Court justices, a few people who are kind of on the line, moving more towards Labour because of these policies, because they show how they're needed, and they're going to say, I'll vote for your bill on that.
Well, I think, again, going back to the criticism that we should be putting aside party politics and coming together, I think it's really important to remember that we live in a democracy, and a key feature of living in a democracy is that we should get to hold our government accountable for the things they've done. I mean,
exactly, that's the whole point. That's the whole point for elections.
I mean, to be honest,
you didn't the last 4 years kicking out.
I mean, to be fair, any government, any party, any person in power right now would struggle. It's a completely unprecedented situation. no one, I don't think you could have prepared for this, but there are
No.
things that the Tory government have made that will probably worsen the situation. If we say NHS funding, they're not acting fast enough. Like, it took them ages to, well, not ages, it took them longer to close the schools than any other country,
Yeah,
well, most
exactly.
countries in Europe.
Yeah.
We've been receiving contradictory information with the whole thing of herd immunity, and we're all going to try and take it on the chin. And then Boris Johnson got it, and it was like, no, we're reverting back. No, just don't leave your home. Lockdown. Yeah, it is a tough one. I hate to just I hate to just rain all over the Tory party, but this really is going to make or break them, I think, next general election.
And they dug this hole. Like, their cuts in funding dug this hole, and it's going to take us even longer as a country to come out of it, because they put us in this hole, however under billions cut to the NHS. But of course, if we slap it on a bus and say it's the EU's fault, it's all fine.
So just to finish up, do you think that we should set aside party politics?
For the meantime, yes, but after serious questions need to be asked about how funding how funding cuts are going to affect us as a nation. So at the moment, we all need to work together, the good, bad, and evil, but we need to look at how we got in this position and what people are going to do different to prevent it from happening again.
Thank you for
listening. It's going to be an
listening.
interesting one. Thank you very much.
Cool.
Stay safe. Wash your hands.